Gunstar Heroes is the debut game from legendary developer Treasure. It was released for the Sega Mega Drive in 1993, but originally the game was developed to be released by Konami. Due to creative differences, the staff working on Gunstar Heroes decided to leave Konami and form Treasure so that they could continue to work on the game the way they wanted to. The Mega Drive was my first console, and this game was constantly recommended to me the whole time I owned it. I'm not sure whether it's a cult classic or just a plain classic, but I have very high expectations. So it's time to meet my heroes. The game is a frenetic, side-scrolling run and gun, which will feel quite familiar to fans of Contra, and for a little foreshadowing, this isn't the first time I'll be comparing Gunstar Heroes to its classic Konami counterpart. On offer are quite a number of cool, innovative game design choices too. Firstly, when choosing a character, you have to choose to either be able to shoot in all directions, but not move while shooting, or to be able to move and shoot, but only shoot in the direction you're moving. Now I know that sounds confusing, but it's pretty straightforward. Another big innovation is the number of actions your characters can take. Unlike the classic run and gun where shooting is the be-all and end-all, Gunstar Heroes allows players to slide, climb, throw enemies. This much more action platformer style of movement makes the game super interesting to learn to play. And perhaps the deepest and most interesting feature is the weapon combinations. There are 4 distinct weapons, and you can hold 2 at a time, either both the same or in any combination. Where Gunstar Heroes takes a swerve though, is in that it allows you to combine these weapons with different combinations producing different effects. Exploring this feature is some of the most fun I've ever had playing a video game. Gameplay itself takes place over 7 stages, the first 4 of which can be played in any order the player chooses, a la Mega Man. As you complete each stage, you also get a bump to your total hit points, preparing you for the later stages of the game. Graphically, Gunstar Heroes has a lot to take in, with tons of enemies and explosions on screen at most times. It's one of those games that has very little downtime for the most part, making for a frantic and addictive experience. The player sprites are quite large, around a similar size to Sonic, but with tons more frames of animation due to all the extra actions the characters can take. The explosion sounds are great, as are the weapon sounds, but the background music is a little quiet and nondescript, being comprised mostly of typical 90s video game J-metal style high energy stuff. I have to say that going through this game, I was having an absolute whale of a time. I completely forgot that I was even capturing footage for this video and was entirely immersed in the gameplay and action. Unfortunately, the game had to ruin all of that though, by pulling one of the biggest dick moves I've ever witnessed in a game. For those who haven't played this before, I'm talking about Stage 4, a unique level unlike anything I've ever seen in a video game before. The level presents you with a game board, and a die falls from the ceiling which you throw to roll. Your piece on the game board then moves that many squares, and the square you land on will trigger different in-game events. A lot of these are fights with mini-bosses, but there's also an item room and a few special squares, including one that sends you back to the start of the board. Now, I'm not a huge lover of RNG at the best of times, so the game already had my hackles up a bit when I got all the way near the end of the board and then had to go back to the start. It feels like a massive waste of the player's time when games do stuff like this, and as a game developer I don't think it's in your interest to try to annoy your players. However, that wasn't the deal breaker. No, I'm afraid it gets worse. After eventually clearing the game board room, from 2 trips round the board, I reached the boss at the other end of it, albeit with not much life left. After a brief fight with the boss, I died, and not to worry, I thought, I'll just try again. But no I won't, because the game completely resets the game board, meaning you have to play through that entire time-wasting section all over again, including the possibility of having to start it again midway through. This really upset me to go from having such a great time to this monumental dick move. At this point I turned the game off and I had to sulk for a few days to let myself get over it before writing this review. So it's time to give Gunstar Heroes some scores. However, I'm going to caveat this in advance by saying that I'm marking the game down 1 point each in both the difficulty structure and playability categories for that screw job that it pulled on me. Whilst the nature of the problem doesn't neatly fit into any of my scoring categories, I feel like I can't let the game get away with that unpunished because it's such a major thing to me. So for difficulty structure, I was happy to award the game a 7, but I'm marking it down to a 6. The game is almost entirely good, clean, fair fun, and if its real sin is anything, it's that it's perhaps a little easy for the most part. Above average seemed fair, but Gunstar Heroes will have to settle for an adjusted 6. Visuals I will score as 7, the game looks great. It's far from the best thing I've ever seen on the Mega Drive, but everything was bright, bold, cleanly designed. The only reason the game doesn't get an 8 is because the screen does often look a little over-cluttered, and a lot of the visuals don't feel super original. Sound scores a 6. Very little about Gunstar Heroes' sound is truly remarkable. However, everything about its sound is fine. I can't mark it low because nothing upset me, and I did say that Contra would be mentioned again, and this is that moment. A lot of the sound is very similar to Contra, especially the ubiquitous explosion sound, which regularly plays on every level. Playability. Now if Gunstar Heroes could feel, I really do hope this score makes it sad. Because I was going to give my first perfect 10 for the playability of this game, I really was. But as I mentioned before, I need to docket some points for the awful checkpoint placement in Stage 4. This is one of the saddest 9s I've ever marked anything in my life. So overall that brings Gunstar Heroes to a 7, or I guess if you're willing to forgive the things that I docked points for, then technically a 7.5. I'll let you be the judge of that. Which weirdly in my head still feels too low, because despite Gunstar Heroes being deeply unremarkable in some key areas, it is so playable and so fun that you really want to mark it 10s across the board, just so the world knows how much you love it. So I'm left wrapping up this review a little torn. Emotionally I disagree with myself with my own scoring. In my head, when I try to be objective, I'm happy to stick to my guns. Turns out meeting your heroes is pretty fun. So don't forget folks to like, share and subscribe, and thank you for watching. I'll be back with more retro reviews soon.